water quality, farming, history and culture, public events, recreation, Delta food, and the arts. Tune into Delta Flows on KXVS, the voice of Stockton, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at KXVS Radio.
Do you want to relive the golden days of Stockton? Join Nate Knott on Stockton Alive every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. Tune into thevoiceofstockton.org.
The Third City Podcast is a production of Third City Coalition. In our show, we examine case studies in urban development in Stockton and other cities like Stockton across the country, exploring their local and regional impacts. Individual efforts play a role in Third City development, and it starts with you.
KXVS 92.1 coming soon. KXVS.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
This is KXVS, the voice of Stockton, and it's time for Connections, Peace, and Justice Radio with your host, Bruce Giudici.
Good evening. Once again, we're here on a Monday evening, and we're going to be discussing the Citizens Climate Lobby and a forum that's coming up on February 3rd, Saturday, Beyond Fossil Fuels. With us today are Margo Praus and Jim Schardt, who are both co-chairs or co-leaders of the Citizens Lobby. And so we wanted to talk about what the Citizens Lobby is, what it's about, what the goals are, and also about this upcoming forum, which is going to be really exciting and interesting, and it's going to be at Central United Methodist Church from 12:30 to 3 on Saturday. So anyway, Margo and Jim, either of you can just jump in and say, explain what is the Citizens Lobby and what makes it different from any other environmental organization. What's the focus?
Well, Citizens Climate Lobby is an international organization that began about 10 years ago, and with an individual who had been active in some other in lobbying, other lobbying efforts, and he saw the need to be able to have people be involved, large numbers of people be involved with advocating for the climate. And what he came up with was a proposal that's called the carbon fee and dividend, which is a way. What we're advocating for is the passage of a bill, a federal bill that would put a fee on the carbon that's within the fossil fuels, coal, gas, and oil. It would be a fee that would be gathered and by the government, and then the second half of our proposal is called division. It's carbon fee and dividend. And the money would be distributed to the citizens or the people, the households in the United States. The objective of the carbon fee is to eventually to be able to diminish the amount of fossil fuels that are used in the United States and ultimately the world too, because we do have a problem with carbon contributing to climate change, and this individual, his name is Marshall Saunders, in Southern California. He started this chapter, and it's grown immensely. We now have 480 chapters within the United States, within the world. It's actually an international organization, but we have chapters in almost all of the congressional districts within the United States, including here in Stockton. We are members of the Stockton chapter. We've been in existence for 3 years. And it has grown, as I say, immensely. We have 90,000 volunteers that are throughout the world. And we are active in promoting a specific bill in the United States. We have a proposal that is detailed, and what we're anticipating that it would do if it was passed is that it would have a significant impact on the amount of carbon that's being emitted into the atmosphere.
Wonderful. So, who is there a co-sponsor, or is there a sponsor of this bill, or is it? So, how popular is it, or how difficult is it going to be between now and passage?
Well, right now our focus is that this appeals to both Democrats and Republicans, because it's going to have to in this climate. Right now, there are bills being put forward mainly by Democrats, and yes, they're not going very far right now.
Right.
But the discussion is happening. So the difference between this group and other environmental groups is that it really uses its citizen volunteers who visit their congressmen. They visit them routinely. They go every couple of months. Do we go quarterly?
Well, quarterly.
To talk about it, to discuss it, to always respectfully discuss it. We don't push, we don't hound, we don't.
So this is sort of a focus on a specific outcome. I mean, because sometimes people will just be, I'm for habitat, or I'm for birds, or whatever. But in this case, it's for a specific outcome to try to get this bill passed, which really isn't. It's not really all that new of an idea. I remember back in John Anderson, back in who ran against Ronald Reagan, he was talking about a gas tax that was going to be put aside for environmental reasons. And I think there was a BTU tax that Bill Clinton came in on, and he was trying to get that passed in terms of getting people to invest in environmental stuff. But it sounds like what this is a way to increase the cost of environmental, increase the cost of fossil fuels, and we're refunding that money pretty much back to people, so that what people what happens is people are dissuaded from using fossil fuels because it costs so much, but it doesn't really cost them because they're going to be getting the money back. Is that the concept?
They're going to be getting the money back, but the goal is as well that they wean away from using them,
right?
Because they will save even more money if they wean away from it. The fee increases annually, so it increases at a certain rate,
like inflation,
to encourage it. Well, sure.
Well,
Yeah,
because the thing is that
Mm-hmm.
if it was just really onerous, then a lot of people would just say, "Oh, I can't afford this." But if it starts small and it just becomes like a paycheck deduction or something like that, you don't really necessarily notice it, and you find out that, like say the gas tax that was just passed back in January, I don't think there's going to be a big push to try to repeal the gas tax, but I don't necessarily think that a lot of people notice how much, what the gas tax is doing, but except that it's gathering money to be rebuilding roads in California. And so, would this be the same type of thing where we're trying to get people to use less fossil fuel and
Well, yes, and it's not only the individual action; it's the people who are the consumers, the companies that are consumers of the energy that's developed from fossil fuels. What our proposal starts out at is $15 a ton for the carbon that's within the fuels, and every year goes up by $10. And so after a while, it becomes pretty significant.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, what's happening is that with those increased, with the fee, the companies are, of course, they're probably going to be raising their prices to the people who are the consumers of their products. And a lot of them are like electrical companies that will that use these fuels to generate the electricity. That's one example. And what we anticipate is going to happen is that alternative fuels are going to be becoming more attractive to these consumers of the fuels, and so the companies will switch over to to wind and solar and electricity generated from wind and solar and other means. And so the objective we have to always keep in mind is to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide that's going into the atmosphere because of the effects that they are expected to have.
Yeah, because the end point is when we look at here we are today. It's January. It was I think predicted to be like 62 degrees, and I think tomorrow, just heard on the radio that some parts of the Bay Area it's going to be 70 degrees, and it's going to be like the end of January, and it's like 12 degrees over the average of the season, and it's going to be like that for the rest of the week. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people say, "Oh, great, warm weather." But a lot of times animals and people and climate, and people on the coast are going to be feeling the effects of this because, and you were saying that some of your plants were blooming today, mm-hmm. So what sort of impacts are those?
Well, they're happening.
Yeah.
They're already happening. We all know that. The East Coast is suffering from severe cold.
Right.
So it's the extreme of weather that we're seeing more and more of. So the heat we had in the summer, the cold the East Coast is having in the winter, the very warm winters we have. I think we had like 2 or 3 days of frost at some point.
Has to be just more energy going into the system and coming out in different types of effects. Because right now down in LA, there looks like there's these heavy winds, and they're talking about fire, extreme fire danger. Mm-hmm. And this is January.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Although we don't want to attribute every unusual thing like this, the heat that's happening right now here, to climate change, because it may not be.
Yeah.
But what we do need to be aware of is that if you look at the history of the temperature increases, the sea level increases, and how it can be tied in. There's a direct relationship with the the beginning of the use of fossil fuels, and if you look at the history prior to that, it's up and down as far as temperatures and things like that. But here, there appears to be a very strong relationship between the use of fossil fuels, the emitting of fossil fuels, and these abnormal things that are happening.
Indeed.
And it has been very insidious since the Industrial Revolution, because we don't see it. We don't see pollution, so we can't say, oh, we're befouling our air, because we don't pay attention to it. And so in the valley, we have so much more asthma than we've ever had before. The children are suffering from asthma. The particulates in the air are damaging to people's lungs as they move forward. Yeah. The extreme fires that are happening in the Sierra, as well as the mudslides in Southern California,
beetle infestations, and like you're saying, in terms of not being able to see, like the particulates are visible, and you go down to Bakersfield and in the spring and the summer, and it's just very difficult to see, very far ahead of you at all. And other places more than just California. You go to a place like Delhi in India, it's just amazing how polluted it is. But
we don't tie it to the cars we drive.
Right.
We don't see it. We don't, we aren't making the connection with, do we need to make a change? Well, we really do need to make a change, but we're not.
Yeah, this is Peace and Justice Network Connections. We're talking with Jim Schardt and Margo Praus about the Citizens Climate Lobby, and also we're talking about some things that getting more in depth into this issue is going to be this weekend on February 3rd. You're going to be having a forum, and it looks really impressive. I remember we put on the back of your connections, your current pink-colored connections, on the back page is the flyer that announces this event. And it sounds like you have some really interesting folks who are going to be discussing. It's called Beyond Fossil Fuels, right?
It's called Beyond Fossil Fuels, Taking Action, and we're really excited to bring this. It's been a collaboration of the Citizens Climate Lobby, the League of Women Voters, and Sierra Club to bring some dynamic state leaders to have this discussion. And what it is, it's basically looking at the various forms of possible carbon pricing. So we have Diz Swift, who is
So carbon pricing, what is that?
putting a price on carbon.
Just like you're talking about for the $10
right.
$10 a ton?
Well,
$15. We are a form of citizens, or our proposal is a form of carbon pricing. Cap and trade is another form of, but it's a different way to achieve hopefully the same thing. So that
and that's a current program within the state, the cap and trade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that still exists. That's still running strong.
It just was renewed last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's generating funds.
It is.
Okay. Yeah.
It's reducing carbon that's being it's reducing the amount of carbon that's being released.
Excellent. So who do you have? Who do you have on Saturday?
We have the League of Women Voters Climate Change Program Director is Diz Swift from the Bay Area, and the League stands united and in support of efforts to price carbon. They just at this point have not endorsed a specific pathway to doing it, so they're open to it, but they are on board. So Diz is coming to talk about the League's position and how they move forward. Okay. Catherine Phillips, the director of Sierra Club California.
Wow.
She'll be coming and she's going to talk about how Sierra Club is addressing emissions with, they're more locally focused, so they're working with mayors to look at Ready for 100. So trying to get to 100% renewable for different communities is very important to them. Looking at the zero emission buses, of which San Joaquin RTD is very promoting very strongly. Advancing electric vehicles in the area. Mm-hmm. We have Hal Ferber, who is a retired attorney from the Sacramento Citizens Climate Lobby, who will talk about the carbon fee and dividend that CCL promotes.
CCL?
Citizens Climate Lobby promotes.
We can't help ourselves.
It's like so. It's a free market pathway. It's a bipartisan solution. Mm-hmm. We work very closely with congressmen throughout the nation to do it. Mm-hmm. We have Caitlin Rodner-Sutter, who's coming. She's working for Environmental Defense Fund. Some of us knew her when she was in Stockton. Okay. And she'll be talking about the cap and trade program because she's been involved with as an analyst for them. Mm-hmm. And then we have Barbara Barragan-Perea, the executive director of Restore the Delta, who will cover the opportunities for water delivery systems, how they can become more energy efficient, and how carbon fees and dividends can be applied toward water issues. What are the local opportunities? The last half hour of the forum will be the audience talking to our local volunteers. So we'll have tabling of all the local volunteers there, and they can talk to the different groups and see what's happening.
And this is on Saturday, February 3rd from 12:30 to 3 at the Fireside Room in Central United Methodist Church, 3700 Pacific Avenue, right across the street from the Morse Chapel and the big tower.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It should be good.
Great venue. Wonderful. It's going to be great weather. It's going to be
great. It should be great weather, nice and warm, maybe even sunny.
Yeah.
And I think we have an excellent lineup of people to have the discussion.
That'll be great time.
Yeah.
So good.
It's exciting.
So there's a lot of information to be gathered. And you know what? I just came from a Earth Day meeting, Earth Day organizing meeting, because Earth Day is going to be on April 22nd at Victory Park from 11 to 4 on April 22nd. And what we're also going to be seeing is the March for Science, which is going to be an hour ahead of that from 10 to 11. And what my hope is if you're interested in working on that March for Science, and if you were wanting to check out this Beyond Fossil Fuels Taking Action, I think part of your taking action could be, taking part in Earth Day, taking part in organizing a March for Science, and then moving beyond, because this year's theme for Earth Day is Every Day is Earth Day. And so most of us do have to drive a vehicle or have to deal with carbon in some way. and it would seem that what we should on a regular everyday basis, and it would seem that what we could do is focus on that and try to figure out how we can lessen our carbon footprint on that day. So that'd be great. Wonderful. So
the science marches. Well, we had one last year, and
Yes.
as I recall, the idea was to bring attention to the fact that science says that we are suffering as a result of some of the things that we're doing, and there's scientific basis for what we're claiming, and so. It was neat last year. I think we went around halfway around. We were supposed to go around the park, which is a big park.
Yeah,
but this year we're hoping that we can go all the way around.
That's right. Yeah, because it's that symbolism of everybody being in it together and everybody holding hands and dealing with this situation. It's not, when you look at a situation that is so vast as how much carbon is being pumped into our atmosphere every day. I mean, if you just look at every road you're on, and the cars that are packed on those freeways, and then just think about that over the entire nation, and then Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York, any place, and then you multiply that by a number of vehicles that are overseas. It is just astounding how much carbon is being pumped into our atmosphere on an every minute basis. It's just awesome. And so what we all have to do is we all have to do our part. For one thing, we have to take individual responsibility for what we're doing, but also we have to hold our leaders accountable, and that's what Citizens Climate Lobby does. Is it tries to get our leaders to lead in a direction that where to a place where we would like to end up. Mm-hmm. Because right now we're way over 350 parts per million in terms of carbon dioxide, and that is seen as being a threshold that we shouldn't go beyond.
Yes. And you mentioned about us putting pressure on our legislators, and I wanted to bring up the fact that Jerry McNerney, our legislator here in California, District Number 9, is a wonderful person for us to work with. In fact, he is one of the ones Margo mentioned that there have been bills that have been introduced, and in December of 2015, he introduced a bill which was very close to what we advocate, and it went nowhere. I don't think he got any support at all, but it shows that he is very concerned, and with his background,
he has a science background, right?
Science and in the wind power business. He was executive in that, and he's continued to do that. He's introduced. He's working on another bill now, and then also he's just recently introduced a bill, and I think he's got some support on it that would make it. The bill would dictate, or would state that the government would fund There's a specific organization. It's a government organization, I believe, that. Its job is to look at proposals to do things and to see whether they make sense or not. In this case, what he's interested in doing is looking into the possibility that we could, into some of the proposals that we've been hearing lately that would actually reverse the amount of carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere. And I don't know, big vacuum cleaner or what it would be, but there are
like
ways,
planting a lot of trees maybe that would suck that would
trees
absorb.
But I think that they're talking about more technological things, because we know that trees will do a wonderful job, but as far as some other means that are cutting edge sort of ideas that maybe would work, because we really are in a situation where there's been so much carbon dioxide that's been released into the atmosphere, that's in the atmosphere, that it's actually going to take a long. It's not like if we stopped emitting now that things would get better. It would be apparently it would be a long time before things would actually
Well, the concern
come back
is that well, yeah, it's sort of like a huge tanker or something, that even if you stopped going, you stop pushing forward, the momentum would keep you going for a while. And a concern is at what point do we reach a tipping point where we start seeing that the ice caps start melting and that the permafrost starts melting, and then you have methane from the permafrost being released, which is a really potent greenhouse gas. And then to what extent when you get the Antarctic and Arctic melting, and or Greenland or any of those places that reflect sunlight right now, when those ice sheets disappear, then you'll end up having that water, that area, not reflecting sunlight any longer, but absorbing it and absorbing the heat. And at some point, I mean, there's a certain amount of urgency to this, because it can't just say, well, in 50 years we can, we'll get around to doing it, because in 50 years it may be irreversible, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
it
that's
is
a concern.
urgent. In fact, it's not like I'm promoting Jerry McNerney, but he's told us, and it kind of surprised me when he said it in one of our meetings, that he said it within a not too distant future, like 20 or 30 years, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something like that. He was talking about Stockton and our delta, the water levels in the delta coming up, and some of our communities being adversely affected, and being like just water being right there in the houses and
Right.
things like that. And so,
So like Louisiana or something right now, or some of the really low-lying coastal areas that are right there.
yeah, we're in France right now too.
Yeah, that's right. So it has to be kind of, well, I just wanted to mention again this Peace and Justice Connections. And we're talking with Margo Praus and Jim Schardt. They're with the Citizens Climate Lobby. And we're talking also about Beyond Fossil Fuels Forum that's happening on February 3rd from 12:30 to 3 at Central United Methodist Church, 3700 Pacific Avenue at the Fireside Room. It's free to all, and it's a wonderful time to learn about what we can do about carbon. But it has to be kind of disheartening when we find, for one thing, we see that we have an administration that is opening up our offshore, our shores to fossil fuel exploration and drilling, and then not like a month later ends up putting a tariff on solar panels that are imported into this country by a 30% tariff, which is ostensibly both are supposed to be promoting jobs in this country. But do you have any comment on those two developments, which seem to be, taking us in the wrong direction?
Well, there's so many things that seem to have taken us in the wrong direction in this last year, and I think we can anticipate more going forward. I think the hope that comes from it is that it has really invigorated people to pay attention and to take action and to be out there. It's really hard to know what to say about the pathways we're taking right now. It's shocking. So one of my friends was talking to our 11-year-old grandson, who's very bright and just a very good student, and he was getting an honor and stuff, and she was talking to him about things in school, and she was asking him if they read science articles and books about climate change, and he said yes, they do, but he really didn't like to because it's so scary. For him, it was so scary. It's like, well, and how do you answer that?
Yeah,
it's such an unknown. How do you answer that? Yeah, one of our members also pointed out that a water economist, David Zetland, has put out 2 volumes now of a book called Life Plus 2 Meters. And it's a compilation of short stories that look at envisioning the ocean rise of 2 meters, which is what is anticipated. Well, that's approximately 6 feet. And I don't know where most people live I know you live in the foothills. Yeah. I live in Stockton, and
most people live really close to the coast, and a 6-foot difference would put them underwater, like might be the majority of the nation.
Right.
Because a lot of people do live on the coast.
Right.
And then right now, are a lot of people. I mean, I don't know what would happen to Mar-a-Lago, in Florida, but a lot of Florida would be in really bad shape. Everglades are already an endangered habitat, and the saltwater intrusion that would just decimate that. It's just mindlessly obscene. I mean, it just seems there's no sense except for making a buck to destroy the environment in such a total way.
Yeah, because we truly do know now. We
do know now. I mean, the thing is that we've known for 30, 40 years. I mean, it's similar to tobacco companies. Oil companies have known for years I remember teaching an environmental science class and talking about the greenhouse effect. When I first picked up a Connections newspaper back in 1986, the greenhouse. What will it take to fix global warming? The scientist James Hansen was back there, who was chief environmental guy for NASA, I believe, and he was talking about the greenhouse effect back then. It's like there's just this inertia that people just get along by having cheap energy that makes, I guess, life so simple. I don't know.
Well,
go ahead.
It's cheap energy, but we're subsidizing the oil companies. I mean, it seems like cheap energy.
Yeah.
We envision it as cheap energy, but we pay the costs in so many different ways that we're choosing to ignore it, or it's hard to say what our mindset is, other than big companies have a stranglehold on how we function.
Right. Jimmy, you were going to say?
What was I going to say? I was going to say that I think that, I don't know how to explain why people, you talked about how, we've been talking about this for years. It's been years and years, but still, for some reason, most people don't even consider it. And I don't know whether it's just has not somehow, they have not been convinced for some reason. And that's why we're here. We're here to try to bring it to the fore a little bit more, and put pressure on our congresspersons, and in that connected to that is the fact that there are a few positive things that are happening. For instance, there is an organization. It's called the House. What is it? It's called the House Climate Resolution. Yes, House Climate Solution Caucus. Sorry.
So there are some leaders in the House who are working on this.
Yes, and what this caucus consists of, one interesting qualification that a person has to have is, one interesting characteristic of this caucus is that in order for a person to join the caucus, they have to bring somebody from the opposite party into there. And currently there are 68.
Wow.
So 34 of each. And it's really increased in the numbers of people in it a lot lately.
Last year?
Yes.
In reaction maybe to things like the tariff and the offshore drilling and just sort of and also the Paris Accords, backing out of the Paris Accords.
That too. But it's not like they're all liberal Republicans that are joining. We have no problem getting Democrats in there. In fact,
Sure.
Jerry McNerney is a member. But they have to find, as I said, somebody of the opposite, and the Republicans. And we have some Republicans that are actually raising eyebrows amongst some people because, for instance, there's a new one. His name is Upton. He's the latest.
Michigan?
I think it is Michigan, and he is apparently in the past has been somewhat vocal in his skepticism of climate change and it's the reality of it. But he is joining, and some people are suspicious that maybe he's in there to
disrupt.
To disrupt. But if you look at some of his statements, he has expressed some concern and wants to be able to look at this and talk to people about talk to his fellow caucus members and see whether there does need to be some things done. And he sounds like he's open-minded, and so it's encouraging to me.
Well, there are a lot of business people who are concerned. I mean, there's a lot of insurance companies that are concerned. There's the military is concerned, and those are pretty not necessarily what you picture as being knee-jerk liberals. Those are folks who are looking at the bottom line and saying, we haven't costed this carbon thing into our whether or not a project makes sense or not. And so, but we have to take it into consideration, because if we don't, the hurricanes are going to become stronger, the wildfires are going to become longer and meaner, and a lot of the weather that is affected by the climate change is going to become more extreme, and we've seen that. I mean, the last year was awful for hurricanes. I mean, there were 3 named hurricanes that were just disastrous for different places, and so it's I guess people are just sort of recognizing what's happening and are responding, and that's a lot of times that is what people do, is they see a crisis and they respond to it.
Well, that's what you would hope that they would do, and businesses, because businesses are looking at it from a business standpoint, and and how it's going to affect their business, and it's becoming evident to some of them, to a lot of them, and some of the big ones, even some of the oil companies are making statements.
Well, Houston was underwater from that huge hurricane, and then there was like huge refineries that were impacted by that.
Yeah, so there's reason for optimism in my mind.
Yeah, and then and also it seems that even though there's not leadership from the administration, it seems that states and cities are taking the lead and are going to forums like Paris and saying that our federal government may not be taking the lead on this, but Jerry Brown, for all his pushing for the tunnels and for high-speed rail, which are neither here nor there, but the tunnels in this area are definitely not here, but his push for trying to address climate change is admirable, in terms of what California is trying to do in this country.
Yes,
it's impressive.
It really is. It stands out.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting, and it's exciting to see what other countries are doing too.
Yeah.
So there's hope.
Yeah, there is hope. And this is Peace and Justice Connections. We're talking about climate and climate change with leaders from the Climate Change Lobby, Jim Schardt and Margo Praus. They're having a sponsoring or co-sponsoring with Sierra Club and League of Women Voters a Beyond Fossil Fuels Taking Action Forum this weekend, this Saturday actually, on February 3rd?
February 3rd.
February 3rd from 12:30 to 3 at 3700 Pacific Avenue, Central United Methodist Church, Fireside Room, right across from the Burns Tower and UOP. So, and that's going to be a great event. Can you go through who's going to be there again? This
Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah, because some people may not have caught it.
We have. We're just really thrilled. We just have some dynamic speakers coming.
So Diz Swift, who is she?
Diz Swift is the League of Women Voters State Climate Change Program Director. Okay. So she kind of oversees and has been involved in the writing of their policy statement. They don't, League of Women Voters does not espouse any single method of pricing carbon over another, but they are looking at many options. Catherine Phillips from the Sierra, director of the Sierra Club of California, will be coming to talk about all the current campaigns they have going, dealing with on the local issues, dealing with encouraging transit to go to electric buses, getting communities to go to 100% renewable energy. And we have Hal Ferber from the Sacramento Citizens Climate Lobby.
So is that a sister organization of you, or
it is? It is us. We're a group. We're a local group, right? We're a group, and they are also a group.
Chapter, okay.
And Tracy is actually forming a new chapter as well.
Cool.
Jim Hopf will be there on Saturday to talk to people from Tracy and kind of give them information about what they're doing. Caitlin Rodner Sutter is from the Environmental Defense Fund, and she will be talking about cap and trade because, we talk about carbon pricing, we talk about things, and people say, well, what's cap and trade doing, and what are they about? And we go, well, gosh, I don't know. So hopefully she'll have some insights. It's like, I don't know. And then Barbara Berrigan-Perea will be coming to talk about Restore the Delta and how they envision energy efficiency and how they can make things happen as well. We're just excited. It should be interesting. There will be a panel discussion at the end. There will be about 20 minutes of questions and answers and panel discussion. And at the end, the last half hour, we'll be meeting, the audience will be meeting up with local volunteers at the different tables. And it's at those tables that the refreshments will be sitting, so they'll have to go visit them.
That's wonderful. And also, hopefully, that's where people will be drawn in to help out at the or to sign up for the March for Science, which will be happening on Earth Day this year, April 22nd at Victory Park. The March for Science will be from 10 to 11. And last year's was the day, it was the actual Earth Day. We held our Earth Day Festival the day after, which was the 23rd. But on the 22nd last year, Saturday, we had a lot of folks come out and march around Victory Park. It was a great day. It was a good time. We're going to guarantee, of course, never any rain on that day. And so anyway, and this year it'll be bigger and better. It'll be the 30th annual Earth Day Festival that we are going to be holding in Stockton. And it'll be so the Earth Day Festival will be from 11 to 4. Again, great local entertainment, vegetarian food, informational booths, and just a great time. Free admission, of course, and it's a real family-friendly event. I live up in Valley Springs, and I know that the environment, the response to environmental degradation in the 70s was not a partisan deal. I mean, the first, Richard Nixon formed oversaw the first Environmental Protection Agency. William Ruckelshaus was the first director. It was seen as being a bipartisan issue because we're talking about nobody wants their river to catch fire, and so everybody sort of moved forward with that. It has steadily become like a partisan issue. And so I come from Valley Springs, and I'm represented by a man named Tom McClintock. And then people down in Modesto are represented by Jeff Denham. The last issue of Connections, we had an article about how McClintock was in one of his town hall meetings was talking about how essentially that we weren't managing our forests well enough, and that was the reason why the bark beetle took over. And that's what we should be doing is cutting our forests more like what Sierra Pacific Industries does, SPI, which if you look in Calaveras County, has really clear cut a major portion of our land. Calaveras County is different than some of the other counties in that most of its forest land is privately held by SPI and other private holders, but mostly SPI. And so if you were to Google Earth, the Calaveras County in and around Arnold or Murphy's, and you just sort of looked at it, it would look like it would look like the land had like chicken pox or something. But if you get closer in, you see all these they're not so little, these clear cuts all over the place. And so that's thought of as being a way to manage our land. But beyond that, why is it? How has this environmental issue become so politicized? Is that the bark beetle turns out to be something that was the drought and who's there's climate change. Climate change affects everything, and I wouldn't say that the drought was caused by climate change, but I'm sure it didn't help, And so why are these issues? And Jeff Denham, I'm not certain what his take is on climate change, but do you have any take on why things have become so politicized and how we can get things back to to everybody rooting for the earth?
Well, the Republicans were known as the party of the earth for a while. They were the Green Party. Ronald Reagan, he may not have believed in what was the aerosol danger to the atmosphere. And he said, well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but just in case, we better make sure to take care of things.
I also heard him say, you've seen one tree, you've seen them all.
Well, but so George Shultz, his Secretary of State, is one of the board members on Citizens Climate Lobby.
Is that right?
Because they feel that it's not a matter of admitting that you believe in climate change or saying it is or it isn't, but what's it going to hurt to keep a cleaner air?
What does it mean to be conservative?
Yeah, and to do, to figure out that this is not a good thing to do. It's not. Even if you're not looking at climate change, it's not good to be polluting the air. It simply isn't good. So it's really hard to say why. My theory is it's big money. It's big money, and that's what makes the difference. And our congressional leaders, every 2 years, they have to raise lots and lots of money to run for election, and they have to find it somewhere. So they hunt and they find it.
Yeah, that's the easiest.
And then they are beholden to someone.
Well, if what we say is true about the climate and the fact that there's climate change, then it seems like it would eventually behoove our legislators to start making statements and taking actions that would be on the side of saving the climate, assuming that they want to be reelected and be on the right side, be considered to be on the right side. And so I'm optimistic that they will take that stance. However, Citizens Climate Lobby is not we are strongly nonpartisan. It's a big deal with us. And the reason is because we really need Republicans as well as Democrats to pass this bill. We have to have enough of them to be able to pass this bill. And we have a very, us having our congressman, it's not a problem. It's not confrontational at all. But other ones it is. But Citizens Climate Lobby really advocates, and there's a lot of lessons that they provide us, and how to act when you are lobbying, because we do that a lot. We lobby. Not only do we lobby here in our local districts, but also we two times a year. We have a lot of our people, like thousands of our people, or 1,000 of our people, go to Washington, D.C., and we have a day designated for lobbying after we have kind of had some meetings and things, and it's really a good thing for. I think we have good information to be able to pass out. So. But we lobby the Republicans as well as the Democrats, and in fact, that's where our emphasis, in a way, really is trying to get Republicans to see that this would be a good thing, that this is the right thing to do.
That's right.
Well, we try to find common ground, with them.
Yeah, I think you sort of hit it on the head. Is in terms of it's just the money aspect. Is that how can people deny the science? When if you want to come up with a justification for something, you can always find, somebody to come up with something that will agree with what you want to say. If you wanted to find 1 out of 100 scientists who are going to say, well, this could be caused by sunspots, or it could be caused by the climate has always been warming, or geologically we've always warmed and cooled down, and you can come up with people who will come up with those arguments. But the counter argument that this is happening so quickly, and it's happening over the last 100 years since we've been using fossil fuels, you could say that's a coincidence, but even if it's a coincidence, shouldn't we
just in case
shouldn't we just stop just to just in case, because really the life that we have here, and I think a lot of people just don't appreciate the science of evolution, or of the miracle of this earth, and the diversity of animals, and the diversity, the way that this whole mechanism fits together. There's nothing like it that we have ever come across. And people who are saying that we should pack our bags for Mars are just insane, because Mars has got nothing on this place.
We have such a beautiful Earth. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be celebrating Earth Day on April 22nd, and so the theme for this Earth Day is Every Day is Earth Day. And so what we're hoping is that everybody will see what sort of impact they have on the Earth. It can be, it can be water, air, land, how you treat animals, how you, what you consume, and then also beyond just your basic day-to-day life. What are we doing in conjunction with others, either in our communities or nationwide or internationally, to try to clean this place up? Because as you said earlier, even if we stopped producing carbon tomorrow, there is a lot of buildup. There's a lot of process that will still happen that we have to try to reverse. It might mean a lot of planting of trees. That could be something we can do. Something to try to suck the carbon out of our environment. And planting of trees, who can be against that? Yeah. That's
right.
So anyway, yeah? No, really? Yeah, so what, do you know if the city of Stockton is doing anything? The city of Stockton has always supported Earth Day. And has been, even in the years of bankruptcy, it was, backing us up and supporting us financially. And so, do you know of anything that the city of Stockton is doing that is trying to be lower carbon?
We haven't reached out yet to do it. That's it's on our agenda for our upcoming meetings. Okay. We're looking at a group. Going forward to meet with the mayor and maybe talk to the city council and see what can be done. But
well, maybe out of this beyond fossil fuels taking action, maybe a group could get together and discuss, because it seems that this city council is one of the more receptive to new ideas.
I think so.
And they've already started with a general plan that is a little bit more compact than the sprawl that was approved back 10 years ago. And so that's a start. And in terms of bike lanes, that could be something. But sort of pushing people. Like it doesn't sound like McNerney really needs to be pushed too much. Sounds like he already.
He's on board with.
He's already on board. Yeah, and maybe he could help us push Stockton, or just help give incentives to cities to become more compact.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, well, this has been Peace and Justice Network Connections, and we've been talking with Jim Schardt and Margo Praus of the Citizens Climate Lobby. Again, there is going to be a Beyond Fossil Fuels Taking Action Forum put on by the League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, and Citizens Climate Lobby. It's going to be on Saturday, February 3rd from 12:30 to 3 p.m. in the Fireside Room at Central United Methodist Church, 3700 Pacific Avenue, across the street from Burns Tower. It's free and open to the public. Light refreshments will be served. and come on there and check out what's going on climate-wise. You'll learn a whole lot and meet some really great people. So anyway, this is Peace and Justice Connections signing off. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.